Today on The Riff, Jeremy gets to sit down with April Holman to talk about her journey to North Point and what Kid Point is trying to accomplish every single week. We hope today is helpful and hopeful. Thanks for listening.
Hello, Riff Raff. It is a thrill, a pleasure to be with you today. And I want to introduce my friend, our guest, April Holman. April, how are you? And welcome to The Riff.
I am so excited to be here.
Now, you said you were a little nervous. Is that true?
Always. It's the way I live my everyday life.
Well, we're going to talk about your everyday life.
Oh, okay.
But let's just dive into Enneagram real quick.
Okay, yeah.
So everyday life is Enneagram 6.
6, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Do you believe that, or are you a little skeptical? Because sometimes Enneagram 6s are a little skeptical of that.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
No, actually, learning all about the Enneagram literally changed my entire outlook on everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I sort of grew up thinking, I'm just a little broken, a little weird. Like, I
Okay.
don't think about things the way everybody else thinks about things.
Yeah.
And when we went through the Enneagram and I learned I'm a 6, I went, oh, God made me this way. That's so great.
That is awesome.
I was just, and then I found out my husband was a 3, and I'm like, oh, this is why we fight. Okay. Okay. It's okay. It's okay. But it was really good because when you learn like someone's Enneagram, you're like, okay, so I see, but it also allows me to be a better version of me to other people and for other people. So
I love that.
Yeah.
I love. Okay, so let's ask another question there, and then I'm going to then back way up and we're gonna introduce like the life and times of April. But since we're talking Enneagram,
Okay.
those who don't know what we're talking about, we've got a lot of resources online, even episodes of the Riff about the Enneagram. But just tell for those who do. You've been in the world of a 6 all your life. Tell us a little bit about what makes a 6 and what is the super skill of the 6.
Oh, so what makes a 6 is because I wondered if maybe I'm a 9. 9s and 6s, very similar humans.
Yeah.
But for a 6, we're fear driven. It's like every room I'm in, every place I go, I know and have run through scenarios in my head of what could potentially happen. Thus, I was nervous to be here. What if you ask me a question? What if I don't have a good answer? What if I'm just awful? Like, I will run down every list of everything that could potentially happen and what I need to do to
And
mitigate
now that you
that.
mention it, I haven't thought of any of those questions until just now. And now
Yeah. That's the blessing of a 3.
Yeah.
Y'all are just making that stuff up and you're like, yeah, I got it. Let's go. I can do the things. And that's the amazing part about being married to a 3 is he tempers me in a way that he challenges me to be better.
Now give us a super skill. How would you describe the super skill of someone who has that wiring?
I can assess a situation and determine what will work and what won't.
Yeah.
Because
love
I
it.
run through those scenarios like that.
Now, we're going to get into it, but I would say is a great example from my perspective, watching you operate in all your wirings, able to put on a really good event because you could think of all the things a lot of people aren't even thinking about and set people up for success. And so, love it. Well, great to have you here.
Thank you.
And we're going to back up the train, very beginning of, tell us a little bit about, tell us what you do here at North Point.
Okay. April. I am the Central Kid Point Director.
Yes.
So I
Now, what does that mean for those who aren't familiar with like our multi-site structure and all that?
So I actually used to be on a campus as a Kid Point Director. But when we brought in Central, that means that I get the opportunity to go to every campus and work with the Kid Point Directors at every campus and determine, like, we work through what works best on the campus for the kiddos, getting the curriculum, making sure they have everything that they need to run every week.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I do see your name quite a bit throughout the organization on our hot reports. We have hot, not next.
Yeah.
Everybody does every week, as you know. But and so it's interesting. I get to like read all these things, and usually whatever campus you're on, I'll see a hot report from someone said we had April.
Yeah.
So they love it when you're there. So you have been at North Point how long?
We've been at North Point for, my husband and I, we've been there for, I think it's 13 years.
Yeah. And now Everett is the child whisperer. Leanne, it seems like every weekend shows me a picture of Everett in his element. Is he the 3-year-olds? 2-year-olds? 2-year-olds.
2-year-olds are his jam.
And he's usually mesmerizing them with a bubble machine, or they're building forts.
Praise and worship band.
Yeah. Yeah, teaching them mechanics with lawnmowers. No, he doesn't do that. But all those safe things.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
He
have their
will
own
let them
band.
vacuum. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's so we love the Holman. So let's go way back. Why don't you start? Where'd you grow up? What was life like for you as a kid growing up?
I grew up in Illinois. Mom, dad divorced. Mom.
How old were you?
When they got divorced twice.
Whoa. Okay, I've got some questions.
I know, right? I did too later on. But they got married. They got divorced when I was 6.
Okay.
And then got remarried. Unfortunately, saying for us.
Yeah.
To me as a kid, I was like, oh, okay. So they got remarried, and that didn't work because it didn't work the first time, and it didn't work the second time. So it was really not great. They didn't handle it well, either one.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I have a sister, and we, So anyway, Mom got remarried. Stepdad. Okay. We lived in a not great area, just across the river from St. Louis, Belleville, Illinois.
Really? Okay.
Not great neighborhood, lots of things happening. So my parents were like, we're going to move to the middle of nowhere, Missouri. And I'm like, great. It's going to be my freshman year of high school. That'll be awesome. It wasn't. I hid in my room for many months. We moved to Aurora, Missouri. Great town. I'm actually really grateful that they did that. I probably would have gotten in a lot of trouble, potentially.
Yeah.
But in a small town, that's harder because everybody knows everything. So, but moved there.
What were you involved with in high school? Were you extracurricular activities? Were you like if we just transported onto your campus, where would we find you?
You would find me in the band room or the theater room.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Clarinet?
Band, choir, no. I actually didn't play an instrument.
How did they let you in the band?
I did color guard. Flags.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Do you have a favorite flag?
No.
Just squirrel?
No.
I love it.
Yes. But I did choir, and I did show choir, so the dancing and
Is
the
that
singing.
where you met Justin? In the show choir?
Yeah, with the jazz
like
hands.
city competitions? Did you travel?
Yeah.
Okay.
I also sang with church, and I was in a traveling singing group for church.
Really?
Yeah.
Like to other churches? Really? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
So faith was a big part of growing up?
Yeah. No, I was born and raised in the Nazarene church.
I grew up when I was really little in Nazarene church.
Okay. Because see, I say that, and a lot of people are like, what's that? And I'm like, think of Baptist, just stricter.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the holiness, the holiness tradition, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, was that all the way through high school?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I graduated high school, and, well, I ran far and fast.
Okay.
From everything that I'd grown up with. And when you do that, you tend to meet people who are not maybe equally yoked with you. And
Right.
so I met a lovely person, and we got married. And we had a beautiful daughter, and we discovered that we were not a good match.
Yeah. And was that right here in this area? I mean, in Missouri?
Yeah. So
Okay.
I moved away, met him, North Carolina, came back after my daughter was born, and and so then divorced, and
So you raised your daughter
for 5 years.
Okay.
Before my mother came to me and said, "Hey, you should really get back out there."
Okay.
So when your mom comes to you and goes, "You should date,"
Your mom's your wingman.
I'm like, "Oh, okay. So I signed up for eHarmony.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, I met a really great guy who's been the twos room whisperer for the past 10 years.
So where was your first date with Everett?
Oh, my word. Our first date was Chuck E. Cheese in Joplin. I'm not even lying. I'm not making it up.
Did your mom have the kid or?
No.
Okay.
So we talked. We had been talking, but we decided to meet. So we both knew that our kids were vital and they were like our focus. So we met at Chuck E. Cheese. Our kids played and we sat there and talked. Yeah. He was late, by the way. He's going to hate that I said that. Oh, he's going to be so mad. It's fine. I'm sorry.
So when he did finally show up,
yes.
Did you think he was standing you up?
So a little bit.
Okay.
Well, he was a little bit late.
Great, and then now I'm at Chuck E. Cheese.
Yes. I'm in Joplin. I lived in Aurora. I drove to Joplin.
Oh, that's where he was.
That's where he lived.
Okay.
Yeah. He sent a text to say he was going to be late because he was washing his car.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, he wants to look good.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So
that's what he says now.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Absolutely. So you go to Chuck E. Cheese, and was it the amount of tokens that he bought that you knew this guy is going to be the winner, or like?
Actually, it was the night before. We had been talking on the phone, and every time Brandon, his son from a previous marriage, every time he would come in the room and ask a question, he gave him his full attention.
Really?
Yeah.
And you knew?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I love that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you got married, and then did you move to Joplin? I mean, it was Joplin home.
So
you had a pretty traumatic move to Springfield. So walk us through that. You moved to Joplin, and you're there for quite a while.
Yeah.
What were you doing career-wise? Did you stay home with raising kids? Did you work outside of the house? What did that look like?
I moved to Joplin. We got married, and we opened a donut shop.
That's right.
Yeah.
I love a good donut.
Yeah.
Now, do you currently like donuts?
Oh.
Tell us a little bit about running a donut shop. Not how to, but what was it like?
It's just a lot of work. So
it's typically a little earlier in the day, right?
Yeah, like middle of the night, like 1 a.m.
Okay.
So that you can go in and make the donuts and have them ready to open at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just a lot of work, and our kids were young, and there's not a lot of money. We should have, I look at Hertz Donuts and I'm like, wow, that is so great. Look at those people making money on that, because it doesn't cost a whole lot to make a donut. So I'm like, oh, we don't charge a whole lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You found out you can.
You can.
Yeah,
you just throw some cereal on the top, and you're like, $4.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we did the donut shop for about a year.
Okay.
And then I went to work at our church.
Okay.
Methodist Church in Joplin. But then there was a tornado.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So
it was the tornado.
It was.
So what, 2011?
Yeah. Yeah. F5 tornado destroyed a good chunk of Joplin, and along with it, our house. Thankfully, none of us were home. God does things, right? It's all along the way. It's so weird because I can look back now and I can say things about it because I'm so far removed from it. But I can see now all the ways that we were taken care of through that process. But tornado came, none of us were home, so none of us were hurt, but we lost everything.
Wow.
Yeah. So
so what did you do right away? I'm like, when the dust settles, then did you have like temporary housing, like in a hotel, or what would that life look like?
Everett had a wonderful company he was working for, and as soon as we found out, we were on a trip with his company at the time, and so his company found out, they immediately rented us a hotel room. And so even before we got back, we had a place to stay, which was great, because it's one of those things, when you're driving home and there's this store and there's that turn and there's that tree. So we were driving in, Everett and I together, and you can't recognize anything.
Wow.
Like there's nothing. And so as we're driving down the street, I remember saying, Everett, I think that's our road. I think that's our road. And he's like, oh, you're right. That is our road. It was just bizarre. It's like,
wow.
Yeah. So
wow.
it was a lot. We spent weeks picking through the debris, trying to find our stuff.
Did you ever find anything of value to you?
We found lots of things. I found my wedding dress. That was great, yeah. Everett found his bike. He's going to be so mad that I can't remember what the bike is, because apparently it's...
A Huffy. Yeah. Did he have the streamers
with
coming
the
out
streamer and the horn too?
No,
yeah. We found that a couple blocks over, like wrapped around a telephone pole. So
good thing he wasn't riding it.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that?
So we found lots of stuff, which was helpful. And we had tons of family and friends who came in to help.
Really?
So, yeah.
Wow. So then in that process, is that when you all moved to Springfield shortly after?
Yeah. So we lived in a rental for a few months, but our son, Brandon, was getting ready to go to college in Springfield.
Okay.
So with Everett's job, he could live anywhere along I-44. So we decided to move to Springfield.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, then you found North Point. How did that happen?
So we moved literally maybe 3 minutes from the Springfield campus.
Okay.
But the reason we went there was Everett drives I-44 for his job.
Yeah.
He watched it being built.
Okay.
And he thought it looked like a really cool place. And he liked, our old Star Trek logo.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But he liked the look of the building, and he watched it being built. And he's like, listen, let's go. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. Because we both grew up in church.
Yeah.
So we had to find someplace new.
Yeah. And so right away, it was like, this is going to be home.
I would say that we were off and on.
Yeah.
We were, we'll be here this Sunday, and then it's maybe 3 weeks, and then it's maybe we're there the next week. And so we were pretty hit and miss, I would say, for a while, until I would say we hit a rough patch in our marriage. We had just moved. We've got a kid in college. We've got another kid that is in private school. We've got and she hates it, and he's struggling. And so it's a blended family, which is also a lot. And I remember sitting in the seats in Springfield, and Everett saying, we need friends. We need to be in a group. And there was a thing on the seat of groups. And on it, and he's going to be, he's looking at it, he's like, we should be in this group. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's Married and Awesome, because we're married and I'm awesome. He's going to hate that I said that. He's like, don't tell people that. I'm like, but that's the truth.
That was where you're at.
That's what you said.
Yeah.
So we were in a tough spot. Got into a marriage group.
Was it tough to show up? Because I bet a lot of people who are listening, they hear us talk about groups and they're thinking, either I don't need a group because everything's going well, or I can't fit in a group because it's not going well. You guys did have this sense of like, we could use some help, use some community. What was it like showing up?
Well, 6.
Yeah.
Terrified.
Yeah.
Everett, 3. Let's go. It's going to be great. Everybody's going to love me. It's going to be so great. So it was hard, and he really did have to push me to go because I didn't want to. It's scary to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
And so we walked into Dan and Patty Cogswell's home, and they...
Not the first time I've heard them being a bastion of community.
Listen, that story gets even better. We went in, and I sat, and of course, Everett participated. And you didn't have to. They said that up front. You can talk as much as you want or as little as you want. There's no pressure. And I just sat there and I listened. But people were honest. They were honest about what was going on. And I'm like, ooh, like, how do you just say that? How do you just come out and talk about that? And they did. And I think it was because Dan and Patty did. Like they said, this is hard, or that's great. And so, I was like, okay, all right. And we just kept going back and going back and going back.
Wow.
And it was about maybe 4 or 6 months into being in group when a tiny little human named Kinley Cogswell walks up to Everett and I with these 2 pieces of paper and says, if you fill these out, to volunteer in Kid Point, I get a $5 Sonic gift card. And I'm like, okay, baby, give me that. And I filled it out and started my journey to volunteer in Kid Point. And that,
now, is that a similar role as what you did at the church in Joplin, or different?
Oh, no, completely different. In Joplin, I was a secretary at the front desk.
Okay. So when you fill it out, were you guys thinking, okay, we'll serve?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of nieces and nephews. We have kids. We like kids.
Sure.
There's always kids around. So we're like, yeah, that'll be fine. And then they put us in the toddler room. And then we moved to the twos room about 10 years ago. And Everett is still there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at what point in this process, and how did you take the step to join the team in a Kid Point capacity?
I'm really glad you asked that, because I was thinking about this the other day. So I was volunteering in the room. Anyone who's met my husband, he's a big personality. Everyone loves Mr. Everett. He's great at what he does. I always say that I am the one who reads the instructions, and I'm the one that makes sure that everybody's okay and everything turns out all right. Make sure kids are fed. So Ashley Eisinger used to be the Kid Point director at Springfield. I think it's a God thing. She saw something in me that I didn't see in me.
Wow.
She saw past this big, gregarious, wonderful man and saw me and thought, I'm going to ask her to step out of this room and be a team lead and lead people. And I'm like, she asked me, and I'm like, I mean, have you met me? Like, people terrify me. Everyone terrifies me. And she's like, no, I really think you'd be great. And I think that's what God does, right? Is He puts people in your path that push you in a way you can't push yourself or won't push yourself. And she was one of those that says, hey, come on. No, I really think you can do it. All right. So next level of volunteering, stepping out to be a team lead. And so that's the volunteering portion of the journey that eventually led to staff, which part of that was like the worst interview of my life.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I was there.
You weren't.
Okay.
No, thankfully, that would have made it worse.
What made it so bad?
Oh, my word. So Everett had a job change, and he's like, hey, I don't, like, he wanted to be out of the industry, was in and move into a different industry, but it meant a pay cut.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't know what's going to happen. And I'm like, let me go get a job. I'm going to go. So I interviewed, had wonderful interviews, and no one ever called me back. A connections job came up at North Point. I'm like, I'm already a team lead for Kid Point. How hard could that be? I could go do connections. I love people. No, I love people, but
right.
Yeah. So I came from human resources. That's my background in the work world.
Okay.
So I'm wearing a skirt and a nice blouse and shoes, and I'm dressed all up because I'm like, I'm going in for an interview. And I walk into a room, and there's like 6 people sitting at a table, all staring at me with like shorts because it's summer, and like they're all like looking very casual. And I'm like, oh, this is a mistake. I've made a mistake. Okay. And I get in there, and it's all people that I know, but it's really intimidating when you're sitting in like 5 people around a table, and they're all going, asking questions. And so I bombed that interview. I was so nervous. I was so off my game that, as soon as I walked out the door, I was like, I have no idea what just happened.
Really?
Yeah. Ashley was in there, and she followed me out. And she said, hey, what about working with kids? And I went, wait, what? She said, yeah, I have a part-time role. It's not full-time. What do you think? And I was like, secretly I was like, oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I went home because I know we had talked. We like full-time needed to be what I did. And I went home, and I'm just like, I don't even know what to think about this. And he's like, I think you're going to do it. That's what you're going to do. And I'm like, I know, but we need full-time. And he's like, no, do it. And I got hired on part-time to work with an amazing group of ladies in Kid Point. Jen Alexander.
Yeah.
Love her. And it was like, I don't know, it was like waking up to something that I didn't know was something I needed or something I'd even maybe be good at.
Now, how many years ago was that now?
6.
6 years ago.
Yeah.
And then, so you worked on the campus for several years. Has it been about 2.5 years you've been working centrally then?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
So tell me, so Kid Point, what are we trying to do from a Kid Point team perspective? What are we trying to provide for these kiddos and the families?
So I think the biggest thing is and the safe place, right? Again, 6.
Yeah.
For our littles, it's definitely, that's the whole thing, is they need to feel safe. So a lot of times the first time a kiddo comes is when they're around that 2-year-old mark or preschool. So it's figuring out, they come in, they're scared, they're crying, they just want their big people, and their big people are gone. And one of my favorite stories is Everett talking about a little kiddo that came in and Mom hands him over, and he's got all these safety stickers on him that say he can't go anywhere, no one else can pick him up, and Mom's super nervous, and she leaves, and he's holding this little boy, and he'll say, like, I could feel him tremble. I could feel how scared. I could feel how scared he was. And he said, so I just sat there. I just sat there with him. I just sat there and held him. And eventually, he started to calm, and he figured out it's safe, and he got down on the floor, and he played, right? So when they're little, that's what we want. We want them to feel that it's a safe place, that when they come, they see their people, they have that routine for those littles. And then as they get bigger, it's the safe place for them to come, but we want them to hear about Jesus, and we want them to develop a relationship with Jesus and know that he's for them. It's not just this thing we talk about, right? It's not just the rules, the things you do, the things you don't do, but it's who he is for you, right? Yeah. And that's what we want to give kids in Kid Point. And we want to partner with families. Like, we know that our time with kids is like an hour, right? An hour once a week is how much time we have.
I go a little long. I give you a little more.
There are times.
Hour 10, hour 20.
But so we know that the vast majority of the time it's parents. Yeah. Parents are the people, the influence. So how can we partner with parents so that we can help resource them and be a part of their lives so that we can all work together to give kids their best shot at knowing and loving Jesus as they move forward in life?
So I love seeing that, like, the scope and sequence and kind of the journey if someone's going to trust us to partner with them with their family. Yeah. Here's what we're trying to provide for your little. There's probably some parents out there, even though we want to communicate and make it available, these resources, they might not. It might be an overwhelming experience just to get the kids in and get them out on their way to the next thing. What's maybe a resource that perhaps a lot of parents might not be taking advantage of that you would recommend?
Oh, I am so glad you asked. Oh, my word. Parent Q.
Okay.
Parent Q is an app.
Separate app than North Point.
It's a separate app than North Point, but we as North Point pay for it.
QUE?
QUE? No, CUE.
CUE.
Q. Q as in Q card, as in Q.
I was thinking Qbert. Have you played Qbert?
I have.
Okay.
I have. It's great.
But I don't even think you spell it that way, but
no.
I do.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Parent Q.
Parent Q.
CUE.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a wonderful app. So Orange Curriculum is what we use. Yeah. It's what all of the kids, it's all of those little crafts that parents see that they take home. It's the things that they learn. So all of that comes from group Orange, and they also produce this Parent Q. And what it does is it has all of these cues. Parent Q.
I got it. I was thinking billboard. Billiard.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that how you spell that, though?
No, it's B with a BILL, but
that's okay. So it's all of these little things. It's this wonderful thing. So you go in, you sign up, you put all your information in, and then you put your kid's name and birth date in. and it brings up their name and their age, and it tells you how many weeks you have left until they turn 18. It's wonderful and also just heart-wrenching as a mother. It's heart-wrenching. You're like, wait, what? But it's so great. And they give you all of these different lines that you can say or questions that you can ask in ways that you can talk to your kids about what we're doing every weekend at church. So it's a wonderful way to tie together.
I love that it's not just that hour, it's throughout the week. Parent Q.
Parent Q.
And that goes for any age that we're dealing with elementary, birth through
high school.
Birth through high school.
Yeah.
And are students plugged into that too?
They absolutely, all parents should be plugged into that because it gives everyone the opportunity.
Okay, so here's another area that I want to hit. One of my, I really, really believe that my favorite shirt that I see at North Point are the shirts that say Kid Point.
Yeah.
Because they represent an adult who's saying, I want to volunteer to help create a phenomenal experience for our kids. And in doing so, also, not only is it going to impact this kid's faith, it's also going to give their big an opportunity to have a distraction-free environment in our adult service.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the ways people who, they believe in our mission, but maybe they're not currently engaged in our mission, what are some different types of roles that they can be a part of in Kid Point?
We have a myriad of roles, actually. So the one thing that I think people think is, oh, do I have to teach kids? Like, do I have to teach kids about faith? I barely know like anything. Is that, and you don't have to teach kids. You can. We would love for you to. But you can come. We have people who do check-in. They greet our first-time guests. They get them all checked in. We have people who greet people in the hallway. It's just like saying hi. And do you have any questions? Let me help you. What can we do? We have people who are in rooms, birth through 5th grade, who are in the rooms, who are just there to talk to kids, hang out with kids, help them with what they need. And then we have people who lead in those areas, people in the nursery where there's not conversations between you and the kids other than, aren't you so cute? You're just so adorable. Look at your little face. But as they get older and you get into the upper grades, it's having those conversations. Like, what's going on with you? How was your week? That sort of stuff. So when I first came into Kid Point, I had a mom. You talked about how what volunteering is. I had a mom walk up to me and she's handing her 2-year-old daughter over and she's like, hey, just so you know, she actually doesn't stay anywhere. So she's screaming, the little girl crying, like she's not having a good time. And she's handing her over, she's like, I've actually never been able to leave her anywhere. So my phone number's right there because the phone number's on every kid's tag. And so you just call me and I'll come get her. So she hands her over and I'm holding this precious girl and I'm like, no, we're going to stay. We're going to find the thing. We're going to find the thing. And I sat there and we played and she was not having it and she was not having it. And I started to play with her and she finally started interacting. There was this tube tunnel in the room and she would crawl through it and I would be on the other end and we'd laugh. And she'd crawl back through the other way and she'd laugh. And eventually Mom comes back and she is looking and she's like, I can't believe that she's stayed this whole time. And I'm like, listen, she's adorable, and I think we're going to be best friends. And she's like, okay. But Mom came back the next week and came back the next week, and the little girl didn't cry anymore when she dropped her off at the door. And eventually, Mom started volunteering because she's like, this is great. I want to be a part of this because this has changed how I can go to church. I get to go sit, and I don't have to worry. Yeah. Because there's this wonderful, not me, but wonderful humans back there who are with our kids, creating this safe place, not just for them, but for me too.
Yeah, I do believe if you're here, you're listening, you're on this mission, and you feel you have room in your life to be able to impact somebody else, I think that volunteering in Kid Point is such a significant way to serve this mission. Because it impacts the entire family unit, whatever that unit looks like, and whether that's once a month, whether it's once a week, and we have an opportunity for you, whatever your skill set is. Best way for them to take that next step is that an email, is that an app? What's the best way?
They can do that in any way they'd like. Connection cards. Yeah. You just write I'll serve. Just write Kid Point.
Yeah.
Just write KP. Any of that. All of that. The app, the anywhere you want. If you want to walk up to any staff member, hey, Kid Point, they'll be like, hey, come on, let's come talk.
We'll make it
let's
happen.
come talk. Yeah.
Every campus.
Every campus.
All 4 campuses every week. So those of you who are listening who are part of that team, you're making such a big difference. Thank you so much for what you're doing. There really is no way we can do any of this mission without people like you who believe in this generation. So we're so thankful for that, and a big invitation for those who believe in this mission. And I'm so thankful to have you, April. I love Everett too, but we're not talking about Everett right now. I'm so thankful to have you on this team. And I think of it from my perspective as a pastor to think the different things that have been huge for you, whether it was a decision to come back to a church, a decision to get into a group, a decision to serve, an invitation to serve at a higher level. There's so many things that really worked right. And I know that's what you're neck deep working on reproducing for others. So thank you. Thanks for leading the way with our Kid Point. I'm excited about it. I love it when you go to conferences with your team and you do events with your team. And this summer we had a phenomenal 3-day kid event.
Yeah, we did.
And so it's just great. I love seeing those kids come in and excited. And I love that it was organized and safe.
It was.
Thanks for bringing all the best part of the sickness. I called it a sickness.
Woo!
That's Freudian.
What kind of slip was
That's
that?
what a 3 says. It's a sickness.
Okay. All right.
I love it.
I want to say one thing. Can I say one thing?
Oh, yeah. You're the guest.
So I want to say one thing about part of the reason that North Point has been so impactful, and that has to do with you. So I grew up in church. I said that earlier, right? So I grew up in church, and growing up Nazarene, it was always God was this big overseer that sat up here, and he was just waiting for you to do something wrong, and you're like, ah. But you were talking one time, and you said, no, listen, God's like a dad. He's like your dad. He loves you. Like, think about how you love your kids. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. No, I love my kids. If I see them running headlong at a brick wall, I'm going to try and stop them, but I can't stop them. And if they do it, you have to let them. But that's the way God loves you. And the reason that he put all of these things in place is because he loves you. And he sees that we can run straight at a brick wall sometimes. And for me, that was a light bulb moment of, oh, God is way different than I thought. So thank you for that, because that was probably 10 years ago that you said it. And to this day, it's one of the most impactful things for me in how I choose to see God versus how I used to see him.
That's awesome. Well, good. I wish people would remember the things I say that are worthwhile and forget the dumb things that I say. And
I hear I'm supposed to offer to have Kid Point be a sponsor. Is that like of the show?
Yes.
Here?
Yes, absolutely.
So I just wanted to offer us as a sponsor, so we could have some commercials made to maybe run.
We're all about it. Okay. We're all about it. So
listen,
I'm just glad that we're kid friendly. This is great. Thank you, April. You're awesome, and your team is awesome.
Thank
you.
And
that could include you as well. Hey, thanks for listening to another episode of The Riff. Thrilled to be able to highlight our Kid Point leadership here today. So have a great week.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Riff. We'll have a brand new episode every week, wherever you find podcasts.